listening to the Bull Mountain Podcast. Brought to you by Happy Hollow Outdoors.
Hey everybody, Dale Raper here with Happy Hollow Outdoors on the Bull Mountain Podcast. We're sitting here today with Paul Antczak off Mountain Man Show. Paul, it's good to have you.
Buddy, it's good to be here.
Man,
it's good
we
to be
appreciate you being here. I want to shout out right quick before I forget it to Tony Comey for getting me hooked up with you.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that, Tony.
Yeah.
Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you from.
Oh, shoot. It all kind of started back in Wisconsin. I wasn't raised in a trapping family or nothing like that, but in Wisconsin in like the third grade, we studied the mountain man era.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of our Wisconsin history. And I really got curious about trapping back then when I was about 10 years old, right around 1977. So now I'm kind of telling my age. But I was catching rabbits and stuff like that. I never had a father growing up. He died when I was young, so I didn't have nobody to go ahead and mentor me into the outdoor world. I just kind of went through it, making mistakes and everything.
Right.
Anyways, I'd always seek out my buddies' fathers or whatever if I ever needed any help. And so my neighbor, Mr. Wilsinski, he said, he goes, why are you trapping rabbits and groundhogs? I'm like, well, I'm just trapping them, And he goes, why don't you trap something like muskrats and then you can sell the fur? And I'm like, huh? And he goes, yeah, you sell the fur. The fur buyer comes through town and, a couple times a year, and, they're Grunwald out of Illinois. He goes, and you sell them your muskrats. And I'm like, well, shoot, tell me more. And so he goes, well, let me see your traps. So I showed him my traps. And he goes, no. You don't use them for muskrats.
What were you using?
Oh, gosh, it was like number 2 old Victor square jaws where the levers were down like that,
Yeah.
They make great mink traps. That's about it,
Yeah.
And so he goes, no. So he gave me the right traps. And he goes, go down in the ditch down here, and irrigation ditch. And he goes, this is what you look for. And I caught my first muskrat. And he told me, he said, when you catch your first muskrat, he said, don't skin it. There's a certain way to skin it, because I was skinning the rabbits and everything that I was catching. He goes, don't skin it. He goes, and when I get down at work, he goes, I'll show you how to skin a muskrat. Okay. I catch the first muskrat, and I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for him, I was so excited, And I remember that muskrat was alive, and all I could see was the tail sticking out of the grass, and I pulled it, and dang thing almost bit me,
Yeah.
So anyway, I couldn't wait because I'm an impatient person, and I skinned it up the belly like a beaver. I remember cutting them guts and everything, and he come home like, Mr. Wilsinski, look, and he goes, throw it away, go catch another one. You did it wrong. He goes, you're supposed to wait for me. He goes, I'm like, oh. I threw it away, and then I brought one back. I waited for him, and then he showed me the correct way, and we put it on a wire stretcher, and I owe basically all of it to him, and that year I caught 7 muskrats and a big old Wisconsin coon, and I made $34.50. I remember the fur buyer, Grunwald, coming in, and they bought fur there's a walkout basement underneath of a bar in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And I remember walking in there and seeing the piles of red fox, and old guy like me with beard, he's got these red fox over his shoulder, and I thought I stepped back in time. I thought it was the coolest thing. And that fur buyer looked at my muskrats, and he gave me some tips on, how to better put up my muskrats. And then he looked at that coon, which I just skinned it. It wasn't fleshed or stretched, not like that. And he looked at the coon. He goes, son, that's a really nice coon. He goes, I'll give you $20 for that coon. Never forget that. I went home, my mom driving, I went home sitting and just looking at that check, got my first fur check, So
That was a good feeling, wasn't it?
Oh man, yeah. Just to do something, you love, and and then get paid for it. And that's kind of how my whole life has been. I don't feel like I've ever really worked a day in my life, really.
Right.
So it just keeps getting better. So, yeah.
So you went from muskrats. What was the next thing you targeted?
Oh shoot! Back in them days, we're just coming out of the fur boom, the late '70s, early
Right.
'80s. You know what I mean? So fur prices were going down. You know, but everybody back then, the kids in middle school, everybody wanted to catch a mink. I remember when I can't remember his name. I think it was Greg. He caught his first mink. Everybody's wondering how he caught it. Oh, that was the big thing.
A big
How
deal.
did you catch that mink? You know what I mean? I wanted to catch one so bad, and it took me a lot of years. I caught my first mink on accident. You know, that ended up being in a beaver trap up in northern
Really?
Wisconsin. But yeah. So it went from mink from there. Caught my first red fox in Wisconsin. Caught that on basically accident on a dryland coon set, and I didn't catch my first coyote until I moved to Tennessee. So I didn't have any dryland trapping mentors back then in Wisconsin. Most of you guys are water trappers. The dryland trappers back then just weren't talking.
Were there not many coyotes in Wisconsin?
There was coyotes in Wisconsin at that time. You know, I mean, in fact, that's when the wolves started coming in up in there. But I didn't know any coyote. I didn't personally know any of the coyote trappers.
Right.
And people were still coming at that time in the mid '80s. They're still coming off of the fur boom, and they're still tight-lipped on how they did stuff.
Right.
I met a beaver trapper in northern Wisconsin. Never caught a beaver at this point in time. And I asked him, and he had a beaver in the back of his truck. And I said, "Hey," I said, man, I really want to learn how to catch a beaver. And he says, he goes, "It's a lot of hard work and it takes big equipment."
That's just it.
That's all he
just what
said.
he said.
He wouldn't give me no
He
tips
was
or
done.
nothing. You know. So, anyways, so yeah, I didn't catch my first beaver until I was 18 or so, and that was in Hawkins, Wisconsin. I caught that. And so I moved to Tennessee then when I was 26. And when I was younger, I did a lot of through the ice beaver trapping on a lake in northern Wisconsin called Killarney Lake. I had an old 1971 Aaron's Arrow snowmobile, and that thing it's a one lung Sachs motor, 18 horse, right? One lung or one piston. That one piston, about like that, I remember, because I could fit a whole 2x4 inside the cylinder. It would vapor lock. And so I'd have to keep a 9/16 wrench with me. I'd keep a 2x4 and a hammer. Because if I was out in the bush and that thing would vapor lock, you couldn't even pull the cord. Or it would top dead center. It wouldn't come back down.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd go ahead, pull the head off of it, put that chunk of 2x4 on there and slam it down with a hammer. Slam that piston down, put it back on, and she'd fire up. But yeah, that was my winter ugly snowmobile. But so from there, when I was 26, I moved down to Tennessee, and they didn't have the muskrat population like Wisconsin muskrat marshes did, and stuff like that. And so noticed a lot of coyotes, and so that's where I snared and I footholded my first coyote, was East Tennessee. And so yeah. Then I started a wildlife control business in the Smoky Mountains in like 2008, and then went through a real bad divorce and kind of checked out a little bit, and I almost stopped trapping. I just lost interest in it after my wildlife control business. I was doing contract work, so I'd come down to like Alabama and do contract work for some big landowners.
Right.
Like Hugh Thomas, I've trapped for him, the Gray Rocks Ranch, and just different places in Alabama. And then I'd come back to Tennessee. Then I would do squirrels in the Smoky Mountains, and so my business was really booming. And I was trapping 247, 365, and I really was burning myself out on it, and I almost quit. I mean, I didn't want to go ahead and catch wire-haired coyotes anymore,
Right.
just to kill them and throw them in the ditch.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to do that. I skin. The only coyotes I don't skin is if it's eat up with mange. I only threw one coyote out this year, So I was tired of catching, coming from the north and coming down south. I was tired of, because our fur market dropped. I was tired of catching $5 coon and, working my tail off of it, just like anybody else. And so instead of me complaining about it, I just pulled my stakes and moved to Montana. you know,
Went
so
to where good fur was at.
where good fur was at, and I found myself from 2004 to about 2012. I would go to like Illinois. I trapped now a total of 11 states. So I would always go back north to go catch good fur also, So, I mean, I was trapping a lot, and that was part of my burnout too.
Yeah.
And so moving out to Montana, first of all, it's a different coyote out there. I don't care what anybody says. It's a completely different coyote. Moving out there and learning how to trap coyotes. And this was the first time I realized I had a different kind of animal to mess with. I was a 100 coyote season guy, back east here. And so I moved out there. No, I didn't move out there yet. I had bought my property, built my cabin, and then I went out there in October, and I was so excited to trap out there. So I got my non-resident license. I brought, I think it was like 50, 60 traps, coyote traps. So excited to trap. Now picture this. If you ran 60 traps here, okay, and you covered a lot of ground, right? Yeah. In about a week, how many coyotes you think you would catch?
Oh, you ought to have a couple dozen.
A couple dozen, right? I caught a skunk. That's all I caught. And there's
Heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, absolutely. It was horrible. I wasn't even seeing tracks. You know what I mean? I found old tracks. Nothing was fresh, no fresh poop or nothing like that. I went home with my tail tucked between my legs, and I had 0 coyotes, you know what I mean? And I went home, I mean, it's a 22-hour drive, I think it was, or more, or whatever. And 2,200-mile drive is what it was. So it was 30-some hours. Worrying, like, holy cow, I can't catch a western coyote. You know what I mean? What's going on with these things? Well, a lot of it was after talking with a couple good trappers out there and going with them on their trap line and seeing them catch 8 coyotes in a day. And I'm like, hey, well, okay, we're down here in the sagebrush, in good coyote country now. It was what it is now that I know. I said, how do I trap the timber up there where I live? Well, you don't. What do you mean you don't? You don't trap the timber for coyotes. Yeah. You go where coyotes are. Well, you got coyotes, but you just don't trap the timber. Well, why not? Because you just don't. Because you can't catch coyotes up there. It's hard to catch coyotes up there. But that's all I had. You know what I mean? And so I had to go ahead and I worked my tail off for 26 coyotes one year. It was 3 times of the line that I would have here.
So that was timber coyotes.
That was timber coyotes. Yes, hard. And they're more nervous, okay? And a coyote's not smart until you make it smart.
Right.
But they're more nervous. They got mountain lions to deal with. They got wolves to deal with. They got food everywhere. So they don't have to go in open country. You go to the drainages where the coyotes are, where the food is. It all starts in the soil, right? So if you got good soil, you're going to have a good rodent population, right? And then if you have a good rodent population, you're going to have a good predator population.
Yeah.
So it all starts in the soil. So you start into the drainages out there because you go above like the ridge tops and the soil gets crappy, rocky and all of that. Yeah. So you start in the soil. Anyways, in the timber, there's food everywhere. You got pack rats, you got snowshoe hares, you got cottontails, you got grouse. You know what I mean? You got food everywhere. So the coyote can go anywhere to eat. There's a lot of water in the timber, okay? Springs and all that stuff. So you can't pinpoint them there, right? And there's a lot of cover, so the coyote can be hid. So I remember finding a coyote track. Okay, this is the first year I lived there. Behind my cabin, found a coyote track. We had a little dusting of snow. I'm like, awesome. I set up on it. Okay, it was a month and a half later. The snow was starting to pile up, and all that. I pulled the trap out. Ain't caught a coyote. Never even came back through. Okay, never had a new track. Nothing came back through for the month and a half. And then bobcat season started, and so I went back there on my snowmobile to go ahead. That's another reason why I was pulling my traps, because bobcat season started. So I'm re-flopping stuff around. That coyote came through. It was over a month and a half after that coyote came through the first time. he came back through that same spot.
Instead of 3 days.
Instead of 3 days. So then I realized I had to do something different, you know. I got more traps.
Well, yeah, what else could you do?
Yeah, that's about it. And then I started reading the ground different, and I did more scouting.
What do you mean by reading the ground different?
I was looking for different things. You know what I mean? Things that I wasn't normally looking for. I took my Eastern eyes and I turned them into Western eyes, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know,
I understand that.
You know, when you, it's not just the hat that you wear out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's you trap completely different out there for coyotes. I can't remember who said it, but there was an old trap. I think he was an Ohio trapper or whatever. And then he moved out west, and he said it's like trapping on the moon. It's completely. I had to learn how to trap. Now I'm more of a flat set guy.
So,
You know.
no kidding, it's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their mindset,
Yeah. Yeah. They're completely.
their total activity is
Yeah.
that much different.
It's super different. Super different.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured it to be some.
Think about.
I figured it to be a lot, but not that much.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's really different. I think now if I came back with the mindset I got now, I could easily double my catch. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or nothing like that. I come from back here. I went out there with a lot of pride. You know what I mean? And I got squashed. You know?
Well, that shouldn't hurt anybody's feelings because, I mean, that experience, that work is what would allow you to double.
Right.
You know? I mean,
Well, just even like flat sets. I was a dirt hole guy. You know what I mean? And I pounded the coyotes with the dirt holes.
Yeah.
Well, out there, you can't, not every place you can do a dirt hole because it's like this concrete here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you got to do all you can just to get a trap bed in. You know what I mean? And then I might use a rock as a visual, just a rock, and then a little lure under the rock. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know.
So, what about, are they easier to educate being they're already so much more nervous?
You got to think of the coyote out west as this. That coyote out west has been shot at for 200 years. Okay, it's been shot at. The lions have tried to kill it, try to eat it. Lions love eating coyotes.
Yeah.
Okay, the wolves. That coyote now it's bred into it. What is that called? When the weak don't survive, they die. What is that called? Natural selection, or is that what it is? Okay. Now, if you take that, okay, so these coyotes have been hunted and killed for 200 years. Only the good, only the smart ones get to breed. And so what do? They breed smart coyotes.
Yeah.
They have smart pups and all that. I don't want to say smart, nervous. Their caution keeps them alive. Okay, a coyote by me is not going to be seen out in the wide open. They will when they're pups and all that.
Right.
But, you know, an adult coyote, as soon as they hear a truck, a helicopter, a snowmobile, they're gone. They're absolutely gone. Now, back where I lived back in East Tennessee, you know what I mean? I remember doing a coyote job in downtown Maryville, Tennessee, in Blount County. And the lady called me up and said, you know, I got a coyote that had pups underneath my patio. And so I pull in the driveway, and there she is, that wet sitting right over there. She's got her boobs hanging. Just sat right there, watched me get out of the truck, right? I got out of the truck. She walked off. I walked around the back and looked underneath the patio, and there's her puppies. That never have happened out west, because that coyote is like, it's almost like they're born knowing that when you see a vehicle, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, and the same thing with wolves. Let's say in Wisconsin, I got buddies like, man, I always see wolves. Well, they're not getting shot at because it's illegal.
Right.
By us, I've seen wolves 4 or 5 times in my life, and that's about it. You know, out in the wild, with not being in a trap.
Yeah.
Because they're getting shot at. They just don't get seen. You know.
They're cautious, nervous.
Right. Right.
Their anxiety levels through the roof, ain't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, it's just like you and me. You know, if your buddy, every time someone goes to town, they get shot. Pretty soon you're going to find a different way to go to town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you're going to sneak in the middle of the night to go to town,
Right.
right? Same thing with coyotes.
What about coyote sets to wolf sets?
The concept of wolf trapping is the same. You want where if you can guide the nose, you can guide the foot. Okay. Same thing goes with wolves. I was talking with this about a guy yesterday, and he says, "Well, what's the difference between coyote trapping and wolf trapping? With coyote trapping, you do 2 sets. Go. You have your 2 favorite sets or your 1 favorite set. Let's say 80% of your line is 1 set, 20% of your line is the other set.
Right.
You do 2 go, intersection, go, right? And it's more of a production style trapping, right? Okay. With wolf trapping, it's more strategy. You come into an area, you might come across a moose that was killed, or elk or something like that. So now you got to look, okay, how am I going to set this up? All right, they're going to come back. How am I going to set this up? That's the difference of it. Besides, let's say you would do the same thing with a coyote if you found a deer kill on a coyote or something like that. But most of your coyote trapping is just production style trapping. 2 and go, 2 and go. Oh, there's a really hot spot. We're going to do 4 at this spot.
Right.
Wolves. We're about to get in a really good subject. So wolves. This is what I took out of this season. I've caught 2 wolves this year. I was marten trapping, filming for the Mountain Man show, and I had 3 weeks left of season. I'm like, crap, I better get serious. The film crew left. I got serious and ended up catching 2 wolves.
Yeah.
But if I would have went to blind setting in my snowmobile track right off the bat, I probably would have had 3, 4, maybe 5 wolves. So that's what I'm going to take into it next year if we have the snow. We got to have the snow to do that. Blind setting, it takes a lot of those really hard to catch wolves, and you can catch more wolves. It got to the point this year where they stopped running on my snowmobile track because they're noticing that when they would run on my snowmobile track, somebody was going to die.
Yeah.
So after the second one I caught. So then instead of running down my snowmobile track, they would go ahead and cross over my snowmobile track, run it for a little bit, and then dip off of it,
Had done got really smart.
Yeah, I smartened him up. In fact, I had one big male. His foot was that big around. After I caught that first one, I use underneath my wolf traps, you ever see a styrofoam comes in a roll, the sheet, the 12 by 12 sheets?
Right.
I do that underneath the trap, and then I do a sheet over the top. And then I'll sift snow. Not sift, you can't sift your snow, you shouldn't sift. You just kind of, I take my shovel and I scoop a crust. My shovel has to sit in the snow and get the same temperature as the snow. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then you can change the consistency of the snow. There's a lot of science in it. And then your snow can actually crust up and get hard. Okay. So then I sift over the top, and then I take a pine bough, and then I'll, brush it in, or a spruce bough, and then brush it in. But and no bait, no lure. I'm basically a mafia style set. Open the trap up, jaw to jaw, just like this. Let's say this is the snowmobile track. So it'd go right in the center, right here, jaw to jaw, and then 2 little twigs. Fine little itty bitty twigs going up on an angle like that. That's enough to guide that 100-pound animal straight over the top of my trap. And when a wolf walks, his feet are the distance of these 2 traps put together like that, jaw to lever. So, yeah.
I was going to ask you about guiding, if it took more guiding or less guiding, or
you want to do
if
it well.
they were more cautious of it.
Actually, you can really, really guide a wolf in the dirt. Okay. On the snow, it's harder to guide the wolf's foot. But in the dirt, you can literally guide them like you would a bobcat set.
Really?
Yeah, you can picture frame it with sticks. Coyote, you can't do that.
Right.
Coyote would be like, whoa! Coyote would be like freaking out, whoa!
Yeah. Turn it go that way,
Yeah, a wolf walks heavy-footed. Okay, they're just kind of heavy-footed, compared to a coyote.
So, how many days generally is it on average before a wolf pack comes back through?
That's the thing with wolves compared to coyotes. You can't you can't pattern them. And that's the number one hardest thing about wolf trapping is you can't pattern them. They may get hung up on an elk kill or a moose kill for a week or two. They'll get food drunk. So what they'll do is they'll eat 20 pounds of meat in a sitting, and they'll just get drunk on all of that, and they'll go over here and sleep it off, and then they'll come back and they'll eat some more. You know what I mean? And they just gorge themselves on it. And so they might, or if the elk are all hanging out on the refuge. I had a wolf pack do that. I was trapping 2 wolf packs. Tried to trap on 2, but the other one never came back. They got hung up on the refuge, and where all the elk were, So I didn't see them for 45 days.
Yeah. Now, do they mess with many small rodents, varmints?
Oh, sure.
You know, do they feed on them as much as they do?
Yeah, we got our gophers, up there, and gopher hunting's a lot of fun, And so yeah, in the August, our gophers start hibernating around August 14th or so, and so that's when the pups are just starting to get their legs, and they'll go ahead and train their pups on the gophers.
Yeah,
type of thing. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting too. That they focus on that as a food source as much as they do.
Sure.
Something else.
Yeah,
but one thing probably them teaching their pups to hunt.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, our rabbit population right now, which is the snowshoe hares, is low. I live right in the middle. Within calling distance of 3 packs at my house, or ear distance, and that my snowshoe hare population is way low. Yeah, the whitetail population is doing pretty good. Right around my house.
Yeah,
but moose population is getting hammered right now.
Really?
Yeah.
By wolves?
Yeah.
What about? So was it easier for you to learn to trap a wolf, or to trap the western coyote?
I thought I was pretty prideful for a while. I had a really good season that one year. I killed 14. Okay, we can do what's called party trapping. So like if you were out there, you put your tag on my trap, right. And then we both check traps, so now we can catch 20 wolves, right? And back then it was 5, or whatever. And so I had like 4 people's tags on my traps, you know what I mean? And we all kind of rotated. I set them. It doesn't matter who set them; it's who checks it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I literally caught 14 that year. I came out of that season like, I know everything.
Chest swelled up a little?
Yeah, this is gonna be great. Yeah. It's a piece of cake. Just do this, and you're gonna catch a wolf. Well, then the next year, was completely different. And then the next year was even worse, you know what I mean? And I started seeing things, what the wolves were doing, that are like, there's no way. How did he know that? You know what I mean? I always thought, and I used to preach this. I used to be like, okay, a wolf they're never really hungry unless they're sick, right?
Yeah.
They can take whatever they want and they can eat it, okay? Think of it like a inner city gang member. And that's what a wolf pack is like, okay? When they come in, the deer leave and they're just like, oh crap, Anyways, so I was thinking, okay, territorial, a year in post, you know what I mean? And I caught a bunch of wolves on year in post that year. Like, they can't pass it up. They'll pass up a dirt hole, but they can't pass up a year in post. Well, then I started having them passing up year in post. I'm like, oops.
Now what?
Now what? I publicly said that. You know what I mean? And I know some of those guys that were listening, like, yeah, this guy hasn't been humbled yet. I had a couple of them call me up. Justin Webb from the Foundation for Life Management. He told me, he goes, man, you're going to get humbled, bud. You're going to get humbled one day. And I got humbled. Okay, so anyways, and I love Justin. But I was watching, here's an example. Narrow Valley, okay? And just picture this. Narrow Valley, it's a 2-track road. It goes down into a 2-track. And it's tight at these spots. Barbed wire fence, right? And then it goes like 10, 12 feet over and it goes straight up a mountain, okay? Enough to get your truck through. So I'm running a snowmobile track. The wolves are coming through. They're hot and heavy, bud. Okay. So that's where my snowmobile track, that line went like 22 miles to the south, you know,
Yeah.
then I come back through. So like, I'm gonna do your post right here. You know, I mean, they're not gonna pass this up, you know. And so with wolf trapping, you won't see no tracks, no nothing. You check traps. You'll check empty traps 2 to 3 weeks at a time. It really messes with your head, especially a guy coming from back east where you're used to catching a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it really messes with, it humbles you. And so I'm coming down the trail. I'm like, oh, 2 sets of wolf tracks. I got them. And got them. I'm waiting to come around the corner and see the explosion, right?
Yeah.
Had it on a drag and everything.
In
I'm
the
like,
bag already.
oh, he's already skinned, my friend.
Yeah.
He's already come around the corner and nothing. I'm like, what? Well, anyways, before I come around the corner, the wolf was running right down the center of my snowmobile track, and he got within 50 feet or so from where my set was, which was off to the side. I would go in the back of my sled so my feet don't hit the ground, nothing. I don't leave foot tracks. And then I set my trap, make my own urine post, squirt some fox urine on there, right? On the little stump that was coming down. Everything is smoothed over perfectly. That wolf was coming right down the track. The trap is right here. He got 50 feet or so away from it. He went over to my ski track. Here's the barbed wire fence. Up against the barbed wire fence, went 50 feet past it, went back down on my track. You gotta be kidding me. How did he know?
You know, his buddy last year get hung up in one day.
It's crazy, right? Well, it gets deeper. We're gonna get into it. And I think I figured it out. Seen another one where a wolf's coming down the road. I had my urine post set up, you know, and all of that. And this is a 2-track road on private ground. I had urine post there. Snowbank came down, real high snowbank. Wolf came down the road and coming to my urine post set, which I had a few different sets over there. He went around this. I mean, talking a big area like this. Went over there 20 feet, got on top of the snowbank. Let's say the urine post set was down here on the backside. He came up here and he crawled like this. You can see it in the snow to lean over to smell the urine from up here. Then he turned around, he sat down, looked up in the mountain for a little bit. You see his butt track print and everything. Then he walked off.
Educated.
That's crazy. That's crazy smart. So, but I got to thinking about it. And I was watching my dogs. This is a couple falls later, a couple falls ago, a couple falls after that one time. I was watching how my dog Timber worked a urine post set. Okay, not a set where I had a trap, but how he worked a spot where a coyote had peed or a wolf had peed. He would work a spot where the wolf peed different compared to where the coyote would have peed. But the way he worked it, okay. So he'd come up to it and he'd smell that blade of grass where the urine was on it, okay. He'd smell it. He would come over to it. He'd pee on it, right? All these different reactions. He'd go over here. He'd roll around on the ground, okay. Then he'd come over here and he'd scratch his feet. Out west they call it a burnout, right? So he's doing a kickback, right?
Yeah.
And then he walked off. If you understand how a canine smells the way we see.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I'm talking to you, okay, I'm looking at the belt rack over here. As I'm talking to you, looking at the bullets over there. My brain is saying bullets. As I'm talking to you, American flag. As I'm talking to you, you know, the game cameras and all that. That's how they smell. We smell one-dimensional, okay? We smell, you know, let's say someone has sitting over here with a cup of coffee. As I'm talking to you, okay, I can smell one cup of coffee. Right now, I really can't smell nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? There's scents here, but we can't smell it. They're smelling all these different layers. You know what I mean? They're smelling in different dimensions, right? That's how complicated their smell is. If we could smell that way, we would go crazy, the amount of information.
Without a doubt.
So much information. I mean, so much information. And so they're picture it this way. They're smelling that camera. As he's sitting there, he's smelling the camera, he's smelling the flag, that's how much information is coming in. All right, you got that. Hope I explained it right. Okay, so when that wolf is coming up to one of my urine post sets, and all I did was go in the back of my sled, set the trap, squirt the pee, okay, it's only partial. It's only part of the story, right? There's no visual sign of a foot track in the snow,
Right.
because wolves are visual. There's that. There's no kickback from my glands on my feet. There's no kickback. There's no spot where the roll. There's none of that. There's no smell coming off of the coyote or the wolf on the ground. All it is pee. So now when that wolf comes up, he's like, whoa, how did that pee get there?
Yeah.
It's an unfinished story, and that raises red flags to the wolf or the smart coyote. Because most of your coyotes will come in on a urine post, right? I think coyotes have a lot of ADHD.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know what I'm saying? Or they're just like Oscar sometimes, or whatever. But yeah, so it's unfinished information. It's an unfinished story, and so that raises the red flag with the wolf. That's what I think right now.
Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
If that sense is accurate.
Right.
Right. You'll learn that too.
Right. Well, what I did this year, so anytime you think of something like that, you gotta change it up, right? And so caught a real nasty, really stinky, nasty coyote this year. And on my YouTube, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm getting a tan, and on my YouTube, I'm gonna go ahead and give it away because I did some YouTubes about it. And I used that coyote. I skinned it, didn't flesh it, didn't wash it, didn't do nothing. I just skinned it, and I laid it on the snow, and that was my knee pad. Okay, so instead of kneeling, on a pad or something to cover my scent, I used the coyote as a knee pad.
Yeah.
And when I started doing videos on that, people are like, "Oh, that's a great idea." You know what I mean? Did it help? No, I don't know. I didn't catch a coyote or wolf on it. You know what I mean? So I caught one wolf on a blind set, and the other one was on a kind of a blind set with a little bit of lure. But that's kind of what I learned this year.
What about when you are using bait and lure for a wolf? Is it more than a coyote?
Less.
So they can smell that much more?
I don't know if it's that much more, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe there are no sensories there a little bit. But okay, how can I explain this one? I've dabbled a little bit in pre-baiting, okay? And when I pre-bait, I do a post hole. And I got I got a big grinder, and I run whole beavers through it and everything. And
right.
So I got barrels of rotted down meat, okay, different kinds. And so what I've noticed too is I run a post hole, put a camera on it, and the wolves will come, okay? They'll clean that post hole out, all right? They'll pull it out, roll on it. I got videos of it and stuff like that. And then you replenish it. They'll walk right by it the next time. You know what I mean? So I think what they get satisfied, and that doesn't answer your question. It's just something that they get satisfied in it with it. You know what I mean? So I really stopped doing the big pre-baiting on scent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now what I do more of instead of pre-baiting on scent is I don't call it a bait station. I call it a draw station, and you could probably do this with coyotes too, because it attracts a ton of coyotes to my draw stations. Go out there with dog crap.
Yeah.
Just throw dog crap out there. Every 2 weeks, come out there and throw dog crap. Take a leak. You know what I mean? I've had pissing contests with wolves. And go out there and take a leak.
Yeah.
I caught a wolf not this past year, but the year before on my piss. Yeah.
That is interesting there.
Yeah.
So what was he smelling in your urine that,
I'm a predator. I'm a meat eater.
Mm-hmm. So that must mean you're eating pretty healthy, though. Yeah. Pretty natural, pretty organic.
It's a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, that's what it was.
No, I was, I teach at Trappers College.
Yep.
And I was telling the gal last year, I said, no, that wasn't at Trappers College. I did teach that, but I was telling a gal at the Escanaba convention for the UP Trappers Association. She was pregnant, okay? And And she goes, "What do you do about peeing around your set?" I said, "Oh, if you got to pee," I said, "you pee at your set." She goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you pee, like if here's your trap where you would put your urine." I said, "You pee on that." I said, "Don't ever pee 10 feet away, 15 feet away." It has nothing to do because of this human urine. They don't know the difference between human pee or animal pee. It's just, to them, it's pee, right? I said, because they're going to be attracted to that instead of what's over here. What? She goes, "I'm going to try it." I'm going to try it. She put a camera on it. And she set her trap. She went over here 10 feet and she squatted and she took a leak. She called me up. She goes, "You won't believe it." She goes, "That coyote came in, passed my setup, went to where I peed and rolled in it. Did exactly what I told you, right?" And she's like, "Yeah."
You know, I've always assumed my urine would run one off.
Oh gosh, no. No. Mm-mm.
Sure have.
I have more
So that's
problem
pretty interesting.
with deer at my wolf sets when I use fox urine or coyote urine.
Salt.
It's a salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. A pee is pee.
That is interesting.
Try it.
I'm gonna try it.
I bet you catch a coyote on your own urine next year.
Yeah, I'll try it.
Mm-hmm.
We may go set one this evening.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So was it what kind of feeling was it when you pulled up the first wolf in the trap?
I couldn't believe the size. I just couldn't believe the size.
What is going to be the average weight?
Average weight on the wolves in my area is going to be between 80 and 90 pounds. Even the pups.
Versus what's going to be average coyote?
Average coyote by me is going to be 25, something around there. Yeah.
So 3 times.
Yeah,
You
3
know.
times. Yeah. And those are our pups are 70, 76 to 80 pounds ish or so.
Yeah.
On the lighter side.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting there
Yeah.
too. So back to how they smell. And I know you won't be able to, you don't need to get that into your recipes. How many ingredients go in a call that's just bait or a lure that's just preserving it? But how many of them actually go into it? What percentage goes into that the smell is actually going to be luring or baiting that coyote in there? Does that make any sense, what I just asked?
No.
So if you've got 10 smells, is all 10 of those smells working independently?
Oh,
In a bait or lure?
yeah. A canine select smells. Okay, now you just open a whole nother can of worms. A canine will select smell.
All right.
Okay, so he can go ahead and take a pumpkin pie, and instead of smelling pumpkin pie, he smells each ingredient of the pumpkin pie. Okay, so that's how a coyote smells. Real quick, what goes in a good bait? Protein and fats. If you don't have fats, forget it. You got to have fats in your protein, always. Fats in your bait. Fatty acid would be, fatty acid, a good one is brain. Brain is one of the best lures you could have. Okay, so that takes me to, I think there's some, no, that's not it. Cover-up scent. You ever hear guys using cover-up scent?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. If cover-up scent worked for a coyote trapper, don't you think the cartels would use it to cover up their fentanyl?
Every time.
Every time. The cover-up scent would be worth so much money because they get more drugs in the United States.
Yeah.
Because those drug-sniffing dogs would never smell that cover.
Right.
How can a dog smell right through coffee and find the cocaine? Cover-up scent does not work.
It don't.
Yeah. So, guys, we'll take fox urine and mist over the top of their set with fox urine, because are they going to cover up the human scent? Right? It doesn't work.
No.
Does not work. You cannot use cover-up scent with canines.
Yeah, that's good.
So, if it worked, then the cartels would use it.
Yeah. So, I'm jumping all over the place. My
No, it's good.
My mind's running 100. What percentage drags do you run?
It's not so much a percentage of drags to stakes. It's what's happening at that time
At
of
the
year.
location?
Not so much location, it's the amount of snow I have. Everything really revolves around my snowpack on what I do.
I don't even think about snow here,
Yeah,
you know. So
yeah. So if I got 2 foot, let's say, and I'm going to do a set, the last thing I want to do is dig through 2 feet of snow, and then pound a stake through 8 inches of frost in the ground, and then get that thing anchored, right? It's so much easier just to go ahead off the back of the snowmobile and take my drag on a 12-foot chain and go and watch it fall into that powder and disappear, right? And then if you get wolf caught or a coyote caught, you're going to see that drag mark. You just follow that drag mark through the snow.
how heavy a drag you use?
I use 10 to 12 pound drags.
For coyote, wolf, both?
Yeah, I just run my coyote drags or my wolf drags with my coyotes.
Yeah.
You know, another thing too is with wolves, you know, the pack could be up in that drainage, and the last thing you want to do is ting, ting, be hitting that stake,
Yeah.
and then alert every wolf that you're in there. Then they may not come back in there for a couple of weeks. Little things will set a wolf off. I mean, just the slightest thing will turn them off, and so it's a really stressful way to trap, because you're always afraid you're going to do something to make them avoid everything.
Yeah.
Here's an example. I was trapping for the Myers Ranch. I forgot the name of that town in Montana. But anyways, they high-end beef. Okay, so they brought me in to kill some wolves. And she had a bunch of different videos of trail cameras, and she said there's a spot she goes, it bottlenecks down. They're always coming through there. Like, heck yeah, cool. She goes, they're always smelling on this one rock over there. Like, oh really? Let me see the video. Pull the video up. I'm like, oh God, no kidding. So I went and set a trap right there. I seen exactly where them wolves were stepping. Every video they're stepping in the same spot, right? Then they'd go to another rock over here and they would smell it, or they'd pee on it, stepping in the same spot. I had it littered with traps, right? It's got it all set right out of the back of my truck. It was awesome. Got it all set up. I'm like, I'm going to add to it. I can't remember what lure I put down there. I put a little lure down there. I think it was a Violator 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wolves are supposed to love Violator 7. That was the first year I was using it. So I put a little Violator 7 down there. Got a little bit of snow, right? You see the tracks come down. Boom, they came down to the gate. And this is 30 yards away, you know, where that gate is. I can show you on Onyx where it is. They slam on their brakes. I mean, like literally skid to a stop. And then they went around that spot, down into the creek bottom, and they came back up onto the corner over there. I'm like, what in the?
So that one little bit.
I found out that the government trapper, that's where he always caught his wolves.
Mm.
So I changed the smell, which was an aggressive smell.
Right.
I changed the smell by one lure. Ruined it. Ruined that spot. Ruined it.
Have you been back to it?
No.
In the season since?
Mm-mm.
I wonder how long. Well, I put baits and stuff out before testing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it lasts for months.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But after they smelled that, I wonder how long it was before they came back through there. If they
Yeah.
have come back through there.
I would have to say it had to be a whole nother pack. You know what I mean? But by now, that was, I guess, 3 years ago. You know, and I know the guy that's hunting for him now and killing for him now, and he's already killed them out of there, and a new group have come in.
Group.
Yeah, so then it would be fine.
Right.
You know, but they're just that sensitive.
Just the little stuff.
This littlest thing, a foot track in the snow. Like if I'm gonna set off of my snowmobile, and let's say I got 6 inches of snow, I'm not gonna walk like I would normally walk.
Right.
I would step, shuffle, walk, step. You look like an idiot out there sometimes. You know?
That's all right.
You know, or then on my way back out, or if I would walk normally or whatever, I'd take a pine bough or a balsam bough and then just kind of brush it out. But they visually can see your tracks.
Are you sure it's a pine?
Yeah. It's a fir tree sometimes.
Well, what's more enjoyable I don't know how to ask that. I'll come back to that. I'll think about that in a minute. So, talk about your different seasons,
Oh yeah.
how that starts out every year, you
Yeah,
know, what it
yeah. We
transitions
talked
into.
about that earlier a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
That
So
is interesting to me.
so it's when I trapped back east here, it was just trapping season.
Right.
Yeah, and you just okay. This week I'm going to go trap beavers for a while or whatever, you know. So they're, you know, our coyotes are considered predators, so we could trap them year round. But I don't trap them until they start becoming semi-heavies. A semi-heavy at my elevation where I live, the coyotes are starting to be good. About the first week of October, they're decent. You know what I mean? And then they gradually progress into it being a better coyote or a heavy by November 1st.
Yeah.
Okay. So I start around October 10th. I'll start trapping coyotes and keep coyotes. You're going to catch a few fox at that time that aren't going to be ready yet, but you keep them anyways. So then I'll trap really hot and heavy for coyotes at that time. This next year is I'm going to double my line this next year, and I'm actually in coyote country now where I'm trapping where it's good coyote ground, you know, instead of the timber. You know, I got smart, just got out of the timber finally, but after frustration, now I'm starting to put numbers up again, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll do that until our water season opens November 1st. All right, then I'll go ahead and I'll run a handful of mink sets. I'll trap beaver at that time before it ices up. I learned really, you know, I used to love trapping muskrats in the fall, but now I love trapping muskrats in the winter through the ice. We didn't talk about that yet, but so then I'll run some beaver sets until the ice starts getting sketchy. You know, when we start making ice, that November-ish is when we start making ice, and you're either busting through it or you can walk on top of it. You never know when it's good, so you just stop trapping beaver until the ice gets good. December 1st is when marten and bobcat open up, and you know our bobcat prices this year went through the roof. You know, I averaged 510 on my bobcats this year. My high was 855. You know, for cats. But so then I run my cat sets, and then I don't start marten trapping until January because where I trap marten, you got to be back there in the bush and need a snow machine for that. Our wolf season now opens January 1st, and so then I'm wolf trapping. Hopefully, have my bobcats caught, you know, by mid-January. Then I can concentrate on wolves. Wolves are slow, you know. I mean, it's not as exciting as people think. You know, you're staring at a lot of empty traps.
Right.
You're burning a lot of fuel on the snowmobile. You know, I put on about 2,500 miles on a snowmobile in about a month and a half. 2 months. You know, this year I think I did a little bit more, about 3,000 miles with marten trapping and everything.
Right.
And I mean, really, that really isn't that much. Consider what guys do up in Alaska, you know, stuff like that. But so when beaver trapping or when wolf trapping is slow, you know, you get bored. You know what I mean? And you're tired. You got to have some success to make you feel better.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to skin something. So then you start running like ermine traps and do a little marten trapping during the wolf season. So I'll rotate. One day I'm wolf trapping, the next day I'm marten trapping, back and forth. I'll run some beaver sets through the ice at that time. And that all goes till about February 15th, I think it is when marten goes out. Then when the wolf season is done, then I transition into spring trapping. You know, let me back up. I learned in Wisconsin we couldn't trap on the huts for muskrats or nothing like that. Well, in Montana, we can literally like what Hannah Barron does, noodle catfish. It's almost like noodling muskrats. Sometimes they're still alive. So we literally punch a hole in the side of their hut, and you know, we find a spot where you can literally go in up to your shoulders, and you're into that hut, and you're feeling around, you know what I mean, and you can feel where the muskrats are coming in and out, and there's a spot where they sleep, and they go back out over here. There's usually 2 entries, so you got your muskrat, you put your trap set right in there, you know what I mean. So when you're going into the hut, the muskrats swim out.
Yeah.
Then they go to their little push-ups underneath the ice. So you set your traps. You do it all day long. Put them all out. 30 or 40. Trap the push-ups and everything. It's fun. You take the dogs out there, and the dogs are finding the push-ups under the snow because they can smell them, and they know exactly what you're doing, right? They look at you. We got one right here. You know what I mean? They get all excited. So you set your traps, 30, 40 traps. You go down to the bar and get a cheeseburger, have a cold beer, and you come back and you start pulling your muskrats out in the same day. Yeah, so it's not like you have to go to sleep and you're waiting the next day to catch You're catching muskrats that day.
You're just
so
up
much
at
fun.
daylight putting traps out.
What's that?
Quick as it gets enough daylight, you go to putting traps out.
Get going in the morning, get them out.
Go chill a little while.
Go have some
back
lunch,
that
come
evening.
back, and then that night you're skinning rats.
That's interesting.
So sometimes the rats won't get out and drown, right? And they're wrapped up inside the hut. So you reach in there, you pull that stake because where the hole is, you tie your trap to it, and a wire goes down in, and so that you tie it to that stake that goes across, right? And so you pull your cap off, you know what I mean? Because you got to keep everything insulated. It's the law. You don't want your muskrats to freeze out. And you pull it, and you're like, oh, we got a live one. I got a video on my Facebook. It might be on my YouTube. But anyways, my son, he reaches it, and he got bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, biting on his glove. So it's like noodling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do that. That's a lot of fun. And you're getting really good rats. And then coming into spring trapping, your beaver run, your spring beaver run, and that's always a good time.
Yeah.
And then you're trapping muskrats at that time too. You get your best rats in first ice out, so.
What about, like I say, my brain's everywhere. People not understanding that wolves need caught, or coyotes need caught, or muskrats, or coons, or whatever.
It's people think that we're just out there raping and killing, and we're just and we're catching everything in sight. Well, first of all, it's not happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? I probably only catch about 60-70% of the coyotes that are out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? In that area or whatever. You know what I mean? It just don't happen.
They think it's all just blood and massacre.
Yeah.
Not.
They don't understand. Here's another thing. They call us wolf trappers, like trophy trappers. You look on my wall, I got one wolf hanging on my wall. I got one. And the only reason I really got her hanging on the wall is because the hair fell out at the tail. It's really not.
Right.
And there's a good thing that I kept her because she's kind of a special wolf. She was alpha female, she had a collar. You can see the mark from the collar, and the tag. The CITES tag in her eye is 1967, which is the year I was born.
That's pretty cool.
And then, so I'm kind of glad. Otherwise, I would have sold it. You know what I mean? But she's really not a trophy. I mean, she was the alpha female that caught. She kicked out all the black puppies that I caught.
Really?
All the black wolves that I caught in my entire life. So I actually, on those you make more money on. So I caught and killed my cash cow.
Yeah.
But we're not trophy trappers. You know what I'm saying? I was asked in an interview in Escanaba, so you must love trapping wolves. No, I really don't. Well, what do you mean? You're the Montana wolf trapper on YouTube. You gotta love trapping. No, I don't love trapping wolves. Well, what do you mean you don't love trapping wolves? No, it's not a love of trapping wolves. I trap them because I have to. What do you mean you have to? Because I know how to means I have to. Because if I don't, we're not going to have any deer left. We're not going to have any moose left. We're not going to have any. It's my responsibility because I know how I do it. I'm not as. I wish I could be more efficient at it. You know what I mean? But with the Endangered Species Act, how they weaponize that, they've taken a lot of my tools, which is time, away from me to go ahead and kill more wolves.
So the season is how long?
The season's only 45 days. It was 105 days. They took 60 off of us. That's a lot of time.
A lot of time.
A lot of time. So.
Especially when it may be, well, you may see them the week before season opens, and they may
Yeah.
not come back through
Right.
during
Right.
season.
These animals, they live, these wolves, at 250 square miles. That's their home range, compared to a Midwest wolf, which is 40 to 60 square miles.
What's going to be a number in a pack?
They're saying, the state is saying 6, but I'm seeing packs of 10s and 12s. The one that's right around my yard, basically, out behind my house, that frequent through there, that one was at 11, and we got her down. We got 3 total killed off of it this year. So wolves, every year your coyote pups disperse,
Right.
right? A wolf disperses when they hit almost 3 years old. That's when they disperse.
And they're going to breed every year.
Then after that, there's some false things that we were always told, that only the alpha male and alpha female breed. That's not true. When those females disperse like that, during that time of year when they are dispersing, they come in season, okay? And let's say you got a rogue female that is coming through, dispersal female, and you got a, pretty horny male
Yeah.
2-year-old in that same area, or just leaving a pack or whatever, even a 1 year, and he'll breed that female. I got evidence of it, and now the biologist is like, yeah, more than one female can breed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that could really blow the population up.
oh yeah, it can
You
explode.
know?
Yeah, the little wolf pack where I trap. Yeah, it's complete. It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Here's another thing. You've heard it before. You get around trappers, or you see it on Facebook or whatever. Caught the alpha male.
Yeah.
Caught that alpha male wolf, or caught the alpha male wolf, or I caught the alpha male coyote. Yeah, sounds better when you say alpha male. How do you know it's alpha male? Well, he was mean in the trap. So, doesn't mean nothing. There's no way to tell if a coyote or a wolf is an alpha male.
I always, you can look at the female's organs and tell if she's had pups.
Thank you. That is the only way you could tell. The only way you could tell with your female is look at the uterus.
Right. So, but how do you tell that on a male?
You can't tell that on a male.
Ever, with nothing.
Mm-hmm. He was big.
I
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
He was a big coyote.
I've caught a few that I felt like could have been.
Yeah.
And maybe was, but
yeah, I've caught some bad.
I ain't never been able to say, hey, that was the alpha male.
Yeah.
I ain't that confident.
Right.
To think I'm some kind of biologist or something.
Right.
But
Right.
well, have you ever seen a pack of wolves get rogue, sporty, kill for sport?
Yeah. Yeah. You see it all the
A
time.
lot of people overlook that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like, they're just all rainbows and unicorns.
That's right. Well, they say that another big MO of theirs is they kill the sick and the weak, right?
No.
Okay, hold on a second. You got, let's say 10 wolves. Let's go with 10 wolves in a pack. Okay, 10 wolves in a pack. That's 250 deer, elk a year, right?
Right.
Okay. What if there's no sick deer or elk for miles?
It's still going to be.
What are they going to eat?
250.
What are they going to eat? They got to eat something.
They're going to eat what's available.
They're not going to order pizza.
No.
They're going to go ahead and take that healthy bull elk.
Yeah, they're not real big on Italian food.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, no, that's just a crock too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they kill for fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's proven, so a lot of these things that you see what the animal activists are saying on social media and everything, it just, it's much crap.
False.
Yeah, it's crap.
Lies.
Yeah.
But so how long ago did you start your brand?
Montana Wolf Trapper. That started, I had a YouTube. I think I started in like 2015 when I had my wildlife control business. And then I didn't do nothing with it. And then when I moved out to Montana, a friend of mine seen what I was doing on my Facebook, and she's like, man, you really need to get a YouTube. I said, well, I got a YouTube. I just don't do nothing with it. She goes, no. She goes, you're putting out some good content. She goes, on your Facebook, you need to do a YouTube. And then so then 2018, that's when I started that brand, Montana Wolf Trapper. And it's not just wolf trapping.
Right.
You go on my page or you subscribe or whatever, you go to my channel and you might see like this, my Judith Basin series of trapping coyotes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to see on my channel failures, you know what I mean? And not just all successes,
Yeah.
you know. You might go to my channel and say, wow, this guy sucks. You know what I mean? I remember 3 years ago, I was filming every time I went out and wolf trapped. Every 48 hours, I checked my traps and I'd film that day. And I wanted to go ahead and show people what wolf trapping was all about and what it was really like. Guys were like, "This is boring." They're like, "Hey, when are you going to catch something? You suck. You so you just drive around on a snowmobile." I mean, those are the kind of comments I was getting. I'm like, "Hey, I'm showing you the real thing." You know what I mean? I'm showing you the real thing. Finally, I caught one, and you know what I mean. I was able to show, and you know, and all of that. So, but yeah, I mean, you're going to see muskrat trapping. You might see some off-grid stuff because I live off-grid. You know,
You live completely off grid, right?
100% off-grid. Yeah, make my own electricity. I wish I could make it off my creek, but there's just too far off the creek. And I really don't have a lot of flow down there in that spot. I get very little wind at, you know, just when a good storm pops up. Northwest Montana is not windy compared to middle Montana. So everything is solar.
Yeah.
Well, not everything. I do run generator too. Wintertime, we get what's called inversion. I live down in a valley at 3,000 feet in Wolf Creek. And then it goes up to 6,000 feet around me. And so we get fog. It's called hoarfrost, and or freezing fog, and it'll get down in there in the wintertime. Sometimes it won't leave for days.
Really?
For days. I'll leave and go, let's say, to Happy's Inn to the bar and get up at 4,000 feet. Like, oh, you guys got sun. You know what I mean? But I got inversion by me. And sometimes it'll burn off at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, then the sun is gone at 3:30. It's already over the mountain. So I get an hour and a half of sun to charge in the wintertime, I'm like, with my solar panels, I'm like this, you know, I'm like, okay, there you go, right, sweet spot, you know what I mean? So, but like now, you know, I mean, gosh darn it, I could do all kinds of stuff with my solar now because I get so much sunlight. Like, for instance, if I'm standing out the front of my garage looking out this way to the south, in the summertime, the sun is coming up here, and it does this. And it sets down over here.
Really?
Yeah. It'll
cool.
Get to the point where 11:30 at night, I can still see some light. And then it starts getting light again where I can still see a little bit of light at 4:30 in the morning. Wintertime. Now this is wintertime. Sun pops up here and goes down over here. So, you know, it's very short.
Yeah.
You know, it's not Alaska short, but it's
right.
It is noticeable. It's that my first year up there, and I'm from northern Wisconsin originally, and my first year up there at close 48th, 49th parallel, I was like, holy, this is way different, you know. So,
what was the biggest transition you had to make going from
trapping or off grid?
Grid to off grid.
Oh,
did you have your mind set already there before you done it?
Yeah, the biggest transition
and there wasn't no surprise?
Wants and needs. You got to separate, when you live off grid, you got to separate your wants and your needs. And I knew that going into this, okay? I knew that one, I was going to be so far away from town that, oh, geez, you know what I mean? I can just go get it or whatever. You go back to, you know, instead of, oh, geez, my chainsaw broke or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and take it into a shop, or I'm going to go ahead and just throw it away and just buy a new one, to, okay, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Type of thing. So a want and a need. Do I need this? Probably I don't need it, but I want it. You know what I mean? And so I remember I used to have horses in Tennessee. And so I remember going to the Tractor Supply and like walking through there. I'm like, went down the horse aisle. I'm like, oh, that's a nice, you know, it's a nice headset. Grab it. $100 or whatever. Go, I'm headed up to the counter. I went, whoa, I stopped. Literally, I stopped myself. I'm like, okay, I got 4 of these at home. I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need this. I want it, but I don't need it. You had to really physically change my outlook on life. And here's where this stems from. I was talking to a trapper years ago, probably 2008. I'm like, how do you catch so much stuff? I mean, you put your barn wall is full of animals. And he goes, debt free. I said, what? He goes, I'm debt free. I said, what does that have to do with trapping? No, I said, give me your secret.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm debt free. He goes, if you got bills, he goes, you got to go work for the man. You got to go punch the time clock. That means you're not out in the woods.
Yeah.
He goes, as soon as you become debt free, you're freed up. You can go trapping. Then you'll start putting up the animals.
All right. Hit it right on the head.
That's right. That's right. So now, I mean, my snowmobiles are 2013s. When I got them, they only had 100 miles on them.
Yeah.
They were brand new at the time. This is my 4th season on them, and $15,000. So I paid cash $15,000 for 2 snowmobiles, which is great because the film crew uses one and they pay me for it.
Yeah.
And then the trailer came with it. Brand new Skidoo, Tundra, or Scandic, or something like that. It's $12,000 for one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted a brand new Skidoo so bad.
Wants and needs.
It's wants and needs. But now I got the 2 snowmobiles that I have, they're the same machine. So now I find myself, like, okay, I got a busted A-frame,
Yeah.
A-arm. I can pull that A-arm, put it on there, and then when the other A-arm comes in, I'm still checking my wolf line.
Right.
So, yeah.
Learn to be a lot more efficient.
Got to be more efficient. You got to be more resourceful, more patient. It's a small problem. A big problem is getting hurt or something like that. If your water's frozen, that's a small problem. You just make a bigger fire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, just add another log.
right.
What about, was there anything popped up that you didn't think about, that you hadn't thought of, or?
I remember my first cabin I built. I didn't insulate the floor, right? And I've come from a cold climate, you know what I mean? But I didn't insulate the floor, and my poor dog, I slept up in the loft, and I started carrying her up there, and she don't like heights, at least me carrying her up there.
Yeah.
But her dang water bowl would freeze every night. I mean, like be a block.
Yeah.
And so then I built I'm a mason, so I built a basement, a walkout basement, and then we put the cabin on lodgepole skids and greased them up, and we got the Bobcat and my ton truck, and we pushed that cabin. I got a video of it. I'll show you. Remind me. And it's a time lapse, and we slid that cabin over the top of that basement, and then set the cabin on that, and then I would be able to. Then I had a wood stove there underneath the floor down in the basement, so kept my floors warm now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and then I did gravity feed. Had a bucket. I did gravity feed shower right next to my wood stove. So yeah,
that's good.
yeah. But I got it set up now.
So back on how often you use a dog on the trap line?
Yeah, I got 2 dogs. My boy's watching them now, and yeah, he told me flat out that I need to get Timber's nuts cut, but but I keep him on there. I like him a little bit cocky. He's what he is. He's cocky. He's a little blue heeler, and I got his granny, which is she's a mountain cur, and they there's a lot of reasons I bring a dog on the trap line. One, they help me as far as showing me where urine posts are. Cat toilets, and a lot of times the cat, I don't know, you got a lot of pines around here.
Mm-hmm.
You see there where the pine needles are pulled up in a bowl. All right, okay. A lot of times I walk right by them. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you can't see them. Especially if they're off the road or whatever, and they'll slam the brakes on.
Oh yeah, they like it.
Yeah, and they'll smell it, and of course they're showing me where critters have been. 2, they're a company, you know, I mean, on the trap line and all that. 3, when I'm making a set, they're leaving smells, you know, especially for coyotes. I don't bring them much on my wolf line just because of the temperatures and the difficultness of the deep snow and everything, and snowmobile. But so when I'm setting a coyote trap and they're over here and they're peeing and they're rolling and their smell themselves enhance the area, and I think it relaxes the coyote a little bit. You know, what I mean, our nervous coyotes out there. And then of course, just for they know what's going on, you know, within a half a mile from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if Ricochet, you know, is sitting alongside of me, staring off in the distance and her hair standing up, I know that there's a line or something going on out there, you know, and he's got to watch my butt. So I mean, it's for my protection. There's multiple things why I bring my dog.
You know, there was one time, little old cedar bush had been bush hogged over, you know, top knocked at it. So it got real bushy.
Mm.
My Iredale, he run by there, you know, he's out in front of me trotting along. And he run up there and hacked on that.
Yeah.
And that just all in his stomach, you know, underneath him, you know, sticking him. And I thought, that crazy son of a gun. Well, 2 or 3 days later, you know, he's bouncing out through there, he stops and does it again. Surely he ain't just decided to do that, you
Right.
know. I set a trap, caught a coyote a few days later,
Yeah.
you know. I wouldn't have never thought that coyote was using that
Right.
because of that stuff poking him, you know.
Right.
So that taught me that it ain't got to be just a slick, clean post,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was pretty interesting to me that
Right.
he showed me that, you know. They could teach us a whole lot.
Oh yeah, they'll. I mean, coyotes by us, you know, guys are road hunting and they'll throw their beer cans out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, coyote, you look, they'll come and crap on on a bang beer can on the side of the road. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Who was that? I don't know if you know Ralph Cyrus in East Tennessee.
Mm-mm.
All right, so Ralph, they did a trapper training camp for kids, and he did the Barbie doll set.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he buried a Barbie doll just from the torso up. I think he put some urine or something like that on it. And he caught a dang coyote on a Barbie doll. He called it the Barbie doll set.
The Barbie doll
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
You might teach that at the college, reckon?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'll tell you a good one. You might use this one. I want to do it with pink flamingo. Okay. So you know how coyotes, they'll come to a field edge and they'll look out in that field and they'll see something out there and they'll go to it.
Yeah.
It could be a bale of hay. It could
Right.
be anything, any kind of visual thing, right? So one year I did this is up in Montana, big old huge flat meadow, and I took a sawhorse out there, screwed a 2x4 up on an angle like that, and I put a deer deadhead up there, and then I went off 30 yards off of it, you know, in the good wind direction or whatever, and I ended up catching a coyote out there, you know, right in the middle of this huge meadow.
Yeah.
Right? There was no poop or nothing out there. There's nothing out there for. I want to do pink flamingos. You know what I mean? Just go ahead and stick a pink flamingo out in the middle of a dang hayfield. You know.
You gonna video this?
Oh, I will. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do
Yeah,
that.
I'll do it. Yeah, I really wanted to do it last year. Just never, you know, you just never get stuff done. But yeah, that way I could bring it to Trappers College.
Yeah.
You know.
So talk about the Trappers College.
Oh yeah, Trappers
If you
College.
don't-
Yeah, actually, we're doing some really cool stuff with it. Okay, so Trappers College is run by the Fur Takers of America. I
Yeah.
went there in 2010. It's a week-long course. Of course, it costs.
You went as a student?
I went
in
as a
10?
student, yes. And it changed my game. I was I don't know, 15, 20 a year coyote kind of guy. You know, it came out of there and I was 100 coyotes a year, you know, just, you know, it opens your eyes to, there's a lot of myths out there as far as, there's a lot of false things being taught, you know, with coyote trapping or any kind of trapping. And that clears a lot of stuff up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you go in there and you're with a group at your level of trapping. So if you've never set a trap in your life, if you've never touched one of those, you know, traps or whatever, don't even know how they work, you go into group one. If you've had 1 year of trapping and you might struggle with catching a coon or understanding or muskrat trapping, you just want to get more, you know, you had your first catch and you're like, hey man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
You'd be probably group two. You know, if you had a couple years of trapping and, you know, you've caught a few coon and now you're starting to handle some fur and you know, and stuff like that. You probably group 3. Now, if you got more confidence, you go to group 4. Like me, I was in group 5. I was like, hey man, I've caught, just in southern Illinois, I've caught 800 beaver. I want to be confident when I walk away from a coyote set. Well, you're in group 5, you know. So that's kind of how the groups go. So you're not in a group that you shouldn't be with, you know what I mean, at your group, at your level. It's an amazing course. All your food, you know, there's instructors. You run a live trap line. It's an amazing deal.
How long is it?
It's a 7-day course.
7 days.
Well, 6-7 days, yeah. So this is my 3rd year being an instructor there. It's like an honor to be it, you know.
Yeah.
So I got with a bunch of YouTubers, and we're doing a scholarship. So, you know, I was talking with another YouTuber. I'm like, how can we pull this off and do a scholarship? I said, you know, how can we raise money to send someone? Because I went on a scholarship in 2010. And how can we, you know, do this or whatever? So we got, right now, I think we got a dozen YouTube trapping channels involved in this. And it's $100 to get in. And for someone to go ahead and even apply to us to get the scholarship, they have to be a member for the Fur Takers of America. Okay, so that it's going to generate membership for the FTA, and also bring in, you know, if we get 50 people, it's $40 a membership. So what's the math on that?
A couple $1,000.
$2,000 towards the MTA. So that's good. Gives exposure to the Fur Takers College. The scholarship does through all of our YouTube channels. Of course, everybody's got to prove that they're, you know, a subscriber to our channel. There's some things you got to,
Few stipulations.
few things, you know, and then write us an essay.
Yeah.
So we decided to get a third party involved, and that way nobody can say that, you know, hey, you're cheating or you're showing favoritism. You know how social media is, you know, people and stuff like that. So we got a third party person. They're going to go. We're not even going to see the applications. The applications will be mailed to a friend of mine, and she's going to take the names off of them and put a number. Okay, so the number will be there on the essay. We also want to know where you're from and how old you are. You know, I mean, if you're from the UK, come on, you know, or something like that. You know, we'd love to have you come, but you know, we can't get you here, whatever. But so then she's going to email all the members of this, you know what I mean, that want to participate as far as picking. I mean, if you're a YouTube guy and you don't want to go through 50 stories on why you should, then you don't have to. But so what we're going to do is we're going to pick 3. Everybody's going to pick 3, and they're going to submit our numbers. So let's say I pick application number 3, I pick application 21 and application 36. Let's say you're in it. You're going to go ahead and pick application 5, application 21, application 28. Now you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So 21 is the dominant number that everybody's picking. Guess what? 21 is going to get it.
Right.
You know. And so then at the Fur Takers College, at the Fur Takers Convention in Iowa, in Spencer, Iowa, at the banquet, we're going to go ahead and announce the winner of the scholarship. So yeah, we're really, really excited about it. So,
do they talk about at the college? Do they go over the anatomy of a trap?
Everything, yeah. Well, like Group 5 or whatever. No, they're not.
Probably, but I mean,
you know, Group 1 definitely they go through the whole trap. We go when the first day of Trappers College, you sit down with an interview. Okay, so you get interviewed by, back then it was you know, Gary Jepson and, you know, the level 5 guys. Instructors will interview everybody. Each person gets an interview to see where they're at. If you go to the college, you shouldn't lie at your level.
Right.
If you lie, then you're going to be put in with the wrong group. You're either going to be bored or you're going to be way too advanced. You know what I mean? Be honest about your interview. So then you go into that's your day 1. During that day, then you get your equipment. If you don't bring any equipment, they'll give you the equipment that's needed. We'll boil and wax traps. Everybody goes through everybody's traps, and you know, we start talking about modifying and, you know, fix it. Let's make this trap more efficient. A lot of people will show up with brand new traps and stuff like that, and so we go through them all and maybe add a swivel or something like that, you know. So it's real hands-on. And then day Day 2, we're on the refuge setting traps. So you're actually setting traps on the refuge. You're catching animals. Like in my group, I'm sorry, but we had the best group last year. There was one gal. She
Now,
was
what level was you?
2. I teach group 2.
Group 2.
So yeah, we get a lot of game wardens and stuff like that in there, and different professional people, in the wildlife industry come in there. And so a husband and wife team came in. They were game wardens out of Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she out-trapped him. He was in a complete other group. He was like in group 3 or 4 or something like that. And she says, my goal is I want to catch a badger. She caught a badger. Okay. She caught an otter, and she caught a fox.
Oh, she had done well.
Oh no, she did really, and of course, probably 10 coon or something like that.
So how many people's in that group?
My micro group, I had 5. In our whole group number 2, we had, I think it was 15.
So you'd have 5 at a time on the trap line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that puts a little more, what do you call it, challenge to it with that many people being there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
right.
that was really
exactly
well.
right. Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, she caught that badger, and of course they just tear everything up.
Oh yeah.
It was a good time.
First time I pulled up on one of them, there was another guy who caught it, but I thought, what in the world has happened right here?
Oh yeah. Hey, I've had them caught where, they dig so much, it wasn't even staked in the ground, and the badger didn't know it. So of course, I boom, kill the badger and pick it up, and the trap, everything just came right up with it. I'm like, you didn't know, but you were free.
Yeah.
You had a trap on your foot, but you were free to go.
You could have left here with my trap.
So my badger specific traps now, I got them long chain, and then if I'm setting right here, I would go over there and stake it.
Yeah.
Because where the dirt is disturbed, that's where they dig. So if I'm doing a dirt hole set for, let's say, for a badger, I'm going to stake it over there.
Yeah.
4 feet over there.
What about the politics side of the
wolf wars?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real thing. I know you guys don't see much of that. You might see a little bit on social media or maybe on the news if something big happens. But, the wolf wars out there is a real thing that's going on. Of course, you got most of it's, we call them the wolf lovers, but I'm a wolf lover too. You know what I mean? I just love them in a different way as they do. Most of your Democrats are the ones that are fighting against us, and the conservative side wants management. So what they're doing is here's another thing. You'll see billboards. You come into Montana, you see the billboards, anti-trapping billboards and stuff like that. You don't see that back east.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now the Foundation for Wildlife Management, it's kind of how I make my money in the wintertime too. It pays my expenses. They got billboards up and stuff like that. The Endangered Species Act.
Yeah.
Okay, so what they're doing is they have weaponized the Endangered Species Act. And quite honestly, the Endangered Species Act is really outdated to what's going on. Now, the eagles, the bald eagle is almost extinct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Through the Endangered Species Act and all of that, it was a success. They jump up and down and they cheer, correct? How come they're not cheering about the success of the reintroduction of wolves and saying it's a success? How come they're not doing the same thing for the lynx,
Right.
or the grizzly bear? I mean, we have more grizzly. We've already had a guy get attacked this past week. He was a shed hunter, and he ended up, killing the grizzly bear. That charged him. So I mean, we have a couple different seasons in Montana, and one of them is grizzly bears eating human season.
Yeah.
So and that's coming around right now, but so they don't want to get rid of the Endangered Species Act, okay, which it really needs to go. I mean, they really should be celebrating their success,
Right.
okay, with the grizzly bears and the wolves, and we'll talk about lynx a little bit too. Remind me on lynx. If the grizzly bear is delisted, well, first of all, it's not just the grizzly bear. You have different grizzly bears in the lower 48. I didn't know this up until recently. You got the grizzly bears up in the Yak.
Yeah.
That's a whole different subspecies of the grizzly bear down by the Yellowstone. And then there's a whole other grizzly bear over there, let's say in Idaho. And then there's a whole other grizzly bear. They're separating all that so they can say, well, these grizzly bears over here, they're all one grizzly bear, okay? And they need to delist them all.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they delist that grizzly bear, okay, how many biologists ain't going to have a job? Those six-figure biologists that are saying, hey, we shouldn't delist grizzly bear. We're not ready to delist that grizzly bear. They would lose their job, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they wouldn't be nothing else.
They wouldn't be nothing to do because, because now it's in the hands of the state. Okay, number two reason why they're not delisting the grizzly bear is they're using the Endangered Species Act as a weapon to keep trappers from trapping wolves. And this is how they do it. Okay, so in the Endangered Species Act, let's say you lived in Montana and you raised cattle. Okay, you're a rancher out there, right? And you come out back porch and you look out back, in not the back 40, but the back 1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
You look out in the back and you glass up and you see, oh my God, there's a grizzly bear out there eating one of my steers. Okay, so you run out there with your truck, let's say, and you're driving around chasing that grizzly bear off of that steer. Per the Endangered Species Act, that's a means of take. So there's different means of take. Okay, hunting, trapping, taking an animal, right?
Oh.
Okay, so you're basically, to them, that's the same thing as killing the grizzly bear. So that is considered a means of take. If you go out there and start shooting your gun over the top of that grizzly bear to scare it off of your horse, let's say, because it's killing your horse, that is a means of take. Okay, so if we act, you see the size of this wolf trap, a grizzly bear's foot can be that wide.
Right.
You could go ahead and get, in that trap, you could go ahead and get a few toes in
Right.
there and hold that grizzly bear. That's considered a means of take, even though they would go ahead and dart that grizzly bear. They'd put a collar on it and they'd release that grizzly bear and he's going to be fine. He is going to be fine. That trap's not going to hurt him. It's still considered a means of take. So what can happen is the animal activists, okay, and they could go ahead and sue the state. So now with the threat of a lawsuit to the state's got to be like, okay, so we're going to go ahead and make sure nobody is trapping while grizzly bears are awake.
Yeah.
Okay, so traditionally grizzly bears will go to sleep right around December 15th. Okay, so every once in a while you got those rogues
Right.
that are going to be still awake, at the end of December or whatever. Then they finally get sleepy and go in. The only time they're usually awake yet is if there's a big kill or something like that. So anyway, so now they decided, so a judge came in. They brought a judge out of retirement, Judge Malloy. Judge Malloy is a very liberal judge, and he always sides with the animal activists. They know this, and he's from California, has no idea how a rancher ranches in Montana. And so he comes out, he's like, okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to shorten your wolf season 30 days in the front and 30 days in the back. So now we only got 45 days to kill wolves, and it's all because of the grizzly bear. When does that happen? It happens the worst time of year, right? And it's the hardest time to trap.
Yeah.
January and the first 2 weeks of February.
Right.
So that's why they keep that endangered species. That's why they keep the wolves under the Endangered Species Act. Not the wolves, I'm sorry. That's why they keep the grizzly bears under the Endangered Species Act, because they use that. It has nothing to do with the grizzly bears.
Right.
Nothing at all, because we got so many grizzly bears. It has to do with the wolf and the money.
Yeah. Because
if they delist it, then they don't have the job to be the biologist over it. Does that make sense?
if if that biologist was being truthful, they should be saying, hey, there's some of those need taken out.
Exactly right.
But
well, you know what they're doing now. Okay, so the Cascades in Washington.
Yeah.
Okay, they just relocated some grizzlies up there.
For what reason?
Because they used to be there, so there needs to be grizzly bears now. It just makes no sense.
That is.
So let's jump over to lynx. Okay, so
yeah,
lynx is on the endangered species list. Okay, so the reason we have to run a 10-pound pan tension in Montana for our wolf traps is because of the lynx. Okay, so there's another restriction, right?
So you've got to run 10 pounds on that.
Yeah, 10 pounds.
Because of lynx.
Because of lynx, yeah. Correct.
In Montana.
Correct.
You can throw a rock over into Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do they have to do?
Nothing. They actually got grizzly. There's our same grizzly bears that live in northwest Montana, also frequent up into Canada. They get to start trapping October 15th with a foothold trap. Idaho. Now this is Idaho. Another judge went up against, and I don't know if Malloy did Idaho or not, but now they got a whole nother set of rules in Idaho. 70 miles down the road is Idaho for me. Okay, Idaho can start December 1st. I have to start January 1st. Same grizzly bears.
Yeah.
They're not going to go, we can't cross over there. That's Idaho. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Ooh,
So
state line.
yeah. Oh, state line. Oh no, I'm a Montana grizzly bear.
Yeah.
I can't go over there. Yeah. Yeah.
That
No,
don't make
it's
any
foolish. It's absolutely foolish.
But
So
the lynx,
yeah.
I mean, I could understand any of that if it was actually endangered species.
Right.
So
Here's the problem with the Endangered Species Act. Okay, so let's say this whole table right here. At one time there was lynx on this whole table. Say 100 years ago. I'm going to try to explain this the way I see it. Okay, so now half of the table now people live there. It's not it was awesome lynx habitat.
yeah.
Okay. But now 100 years later, this over here is not good lynx habitat. But this is. But they still want lynx in all of this area. There'll never be good lynx habitat over here now. Okay, so
it's inhabited by Homo sapiens.
right, yeah, or it could be
know,
logged. It could be anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but from here over is not lynx habitat. But the lynx won't come off until there's the lynx is now protected, I guess, under, and I don't know exactly how to explain all of it. I wish I had something to fact check this or whatever. Or the guy that told me I wish he was sitting right here to explain it better. It's like a 30-year lynx protection. Okay, it could be looked at in 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so which they'll never. I got pockets of lynx up there that I mean, there's lynx tracks everywhere. Right, the rabbit population is about done. You know what I mean? And then some of the spots are really not far from my house. You know what I mean? So here we can go ahead and trap lynx. Okay, and there's lynx all over here, right? No, I'm sorry. Here you can't trap lynx. Over here in Canada you can. I got friends that trap the Canadian line. They call us the lynx factory. You know, because the lynx just keep piling in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All lynx got to do is they're safe right here. They go over here, they can be trapped. There's a ton of lynx.
So
Did that make sense? All that?
Yeah, the part that gets your blood to boiling, you know, taxpayers is paying for every bit of that.
Oh yeah.
And there's a man comes up and says, oh, we'll check it out again in 30 years.
Right.
If he ain't done something to correct that problem in way less than 30 years,
right.
he don't need to be doing that job.
Right.
You know?
You know, I don't know how everybody, the Doge thing and the Elon thing. I mean, I would really love for him to really start, and I'm sure he's already digging into the ESA. You know, because there's so much waste in there. You know,
that's unbelievable.
So,
and you know, like you say, I mean, we don't see that here.
No,
you know,
I didn't know nothing about it until I moved out there.
I mean,
I moved out into it's a
totally
mess.
different world.
It's a mess out there. You know, so everybody's fighting over everything. You know, water rights and public land. That's another thing. When I moved out there, I was under the assumption that 80% of the Montana was public land.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
I've
not true.
always heard that.
Right? No, it's not true. Okay.
Not true.
No, absolutely not.
No,
So what it
man.
is these timber companies. Some are out of Georgia. Some are, you know, not even in that area. They'll own these vast areas of land, which is private land, but they put it underneath block management where people can use it. They can take it out of block management anytime they want to, and they have done it recently, and it really makes people, some of the locals, which I can understand, mad. You know what I mean? Because they've been hunting this since they've been a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And now they can't hunt it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, But at the same time, then you're like, okay, well, they own it, though. They can do whatever they want. There's some big battles going on out there. It's completely different here. And so,
So
and
who's fighting those battles?
a lot of it's being fought on the internet.
I
People
mean,
get mad or whatever.
But I mean, who is it the fur takers?
Oh, on some of the
Or,
things, yeah, you got
know-
through, if it's anything to do with trapping, you got Montana Trappers Association, Montana Fur Harvesters. They do really good job, going to the state and letting us know when certain bills are coming. You wouldn't believe the amount of bills are going through legislation and being fought. And
so that takes money to do that.
oh yeah.
So how do they get their revenue?
Oh yeah, through fundraising and all
Membership,
that,
fundraising and all that,
fundraising.
so-
Yeah.
And I know we're not fighting anything, nothing like that, but I know that we are fighting some things.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage anybody to join at least one association.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, heck, if your state has two, join both of them. If
Yeah.
your state has three trapping, some states have 3 or 4 trapping organizations.
Right.
Heck, join them all. Shows solidarity.
There's a good cause there.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And then of course your national, join your NTA and your FTA. So, and if you're out west and you're gonna go out west elk hunting or something like that, if you're in Montana or Idaho going there, you're gonna go kill one of them suckers there. Always get a wolf tag.
Yeah.
Non-resident wolf tag is like $50. You join the Foundation for Wildlife Management, you get reimbursed for that. So you kill a wolf. Okay, so you kill a wolf, right? You save all your receipts, your fuel, they'll reimburse each wolf up to $1,000. So if you have $1,000,
so I mean you got that.
so if you got let's say you're sitting on your glass in the mountainside for an elk or a whitetail or a mule deer, and you're like, oh shoot, the wolf just popped out. There's 2 of them. You're with your buddy. Heck, there's 3 of them. You think you get 2? I can get 2. Yeah, okay, I'll take the other one. And you each have, you got your tags and your members. That's Region 1, that's $3,000. And you get to keep the wolf.
And the thing about it, ethical hunter should want to take that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Should want to take that out of the pack.
Yeah.
To protect what he's actually there to hunt.
Yeah. Each wolf that is killed is you're saving 20 or 25 elk.
Yeah.
Elk. Now you start throwing in the whitetails and all that. Now you're pushing 30 a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you kill those 3 wolves, you know what I'm saying, that's at minimum 60 elk were saved.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about all you can say.
Yeah.
But you got any advice to a young kid interested in trapping? How would he go about getting started?
Well,
learning or
we just talked about it a little bit. Is join the trapping organization.
Right.
They're going to steer you in the right spot. So if you join your state organization and get involved, you know what I mean, serve, whether I mean, if you come to the convention and help pick up trash or something like that, that's serving. And if they have any trapper training camps or whatever, go to them. More is learned when you close your mouth and open your ears, you know what I mean, and listen to those old guys. Even if you've trapped for a couple of years and you caught a few things, just kind of listen more than anything. And with social media, need to bring that up because that's a big part of our life right now, social media. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with taking a picture of your coyote you killed, you know what I'm saying? But I would put the tongue in its mouth, you know what I mean? I'd put it in a nice posed position. If the foot is a little messed up or something like that because he's fought it and chewed or something like that, hide that foot. I'm not saying to be dishonest about it, but it's respectful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you got blood running down the face, wipe the blood off of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People don't need, because you know how algorithms work and all that, and the average person don't need to be seeing all that stuff. And also think about this too. If different parts of the country, because I've trapped all over the country, you're going to have more animal populations in certain part of the country.
Right.
Like for instance, I moved down from Wisconsin down to Tennessee. There wasn't many muskrats. So if you see a guy catch, a friend of mine caught 400 muskrats out of 25 traps, right, in like 3
That's a
weeks.
lot.
That's a lot of muskrats. You know why he did that? Because he had a lot of muskrats to
Right.
catch. You know what I'm saying? They just kept flowing in. He was on a big river. So don't catch. You'll see big catches on the internet. Let's say of mink. Holy cow! How did that guy get 100 mink? Well, he lived in North Iowa, southern Minnesota, and it's a mink belt. There's just a lot of mink there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So put your blinders on. Enjoy social media, but don't judge your trapping off of what you see on social media. So
A friend of mine, he joined a bunch of Facebook groups,
Yeah.
trapping groups.
yeah,
He had never trapped before, and he went with me last fall, and I mean, we caught like, I think it was 16 coyotes in about 10 days or something, and a handful of bobcats, and whatever. And he said, man, those guys on Facebook, it's just every day they posting something,
yeah.
I said, yeah. I said, but is it the same guy, Well, he gets looking. He said, well, no. I said, well, they're not going to post them days that they don't have anything.
Right.
I mean, I said, you can't worry about them. You got to worry
That's
about
right.
yourself.
It'll get in your head.
Yeah,
It'll get in your head. So,
yeah, but that's
even at my age, I'm 57, trapped 47 years. I still have mentors.
oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I got, I think, 5 different guys that I can call for different species. You know what I mean? And say, hey, man, I got a wolf that's really, what should I do? And, you know what I mean? Just they'll draw you, steer you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Have those mentors in life,
Mitchell Simpson. He told me. He said, Dale, I called and told him. I said, I ain't doing no good with that, but I'm doing good with this. What am I doing?
Yeah.
He said, you're not doing nothing wrong. You're doing what works for you.
Right.
Just because it works for me don't mean it's going to you.
Right, exactly.
Don't care to think outside the box. He said, because I don't know that there is a box.
Yeah. Here's an example I love T-bone set.
Yeah.
Okay. Where I live in a timber, because it's an easy set. It's a flat set, pound that T-bone in the ground, bait, lure, walk away. I'll have very few catches in the timber. I go out to the Judith Basin, out in that windy country, and just pound them. I'll pound them on a T-bone. And here's why. Okay, so my timber, so I can go tell somebody, hey, T-bone set will work great anywhere. It works great. Let's say I never went anywhere else to trap at my spot, and I can run T-bone set. So I got thermals where I live. Okay, so at night, the wind is coming down the mountain. During the day, the wind's going up the mountain. And then it comes in from the west and it swirls around like this. I can never direct the smell over my trap to guide that coyote into the trap. Out in that flat country, we got a prevailing wind.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's super easy. The wind's always coming from that way. T-bone trap. T-bone trap. T-bone trap. Not T-bone and where should I set according to the wind or whatever.
Right.
So that T-bone set, I could run around and say T-bone. Let's say I never left the open grasslands of central Montana. That's wherever I trap. So I got to use a T-bone set.
Yeah.
It's going to work every time. Well, the guy in the timber is not going to work every time for me.
Right.
So I said all of that just for that.
Yeah. But that's very much true.
But, yeah.
You got anything else you want to share, talk about?
No, just trapping's been good all my life.
That's
you know
good.
what I mean? And I love giving back to it, know. And it's an honor for me to be on a TV show like The Mountain Men and portray trapping to what it really is. And my character on the show is I'm a fur trapper, and that's what I am. I've done animal damage control and stuff like that, and predator control work and stuff like that. But I am a fur trapper, and that's what I do. And I think I know we always justify trapping for population control or predator management or something like that. But I think we need to start talking more about fur. I think we need to. We're always, oh, use the fur off of it. Don't tell me to do that, because fur trapping is bad. No, we need to talk about fur trapping, because if you
It's
look
a
back,
renewable resource.
right, exactly. Because if you look back in the late '70s and the '80s, you never heard of raccoons getting in people's attics,
Right.
right? Because the population was controlled because of fur trapping.
Yeah.
So let's bring back fur, So that's it.
That's good. Well, man, it's good to have you.
Good to be
Appreciate
here.
you being here.
Good to be here. A lot of fun.
Y'all have a good one.